Hello everyone and welcome to a most wonderful game from round 5 of the Gashimov Memorial. Now I know this is already the third game we're showing from round 5, but we did say it was a very eventful round, and it's just a great game between Alexander Grischuk and former world champion Veselin Topalov. It features a not an often played line of the Queen's Gambit declined, and well, you'll just have to see what happens. So without further ado, let's check it out. Grischuk has the white pieces and he opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, and as we already said, knight to f3 and d5, the Queen's Gambit declined. Is on the board, knight to c3, we have bishop to e7, just the standard line, bishop to f4 by Grischuk, and now castles by Topalov. We have e3, just preparing to develop the light square bishop, knight b to d7, and now bishop to e2, and here d captures on c4. Finally, as usual in the Queen's Gambit declined, only after white develops the light square bishop will you capture on c4 and make white waste the tempo. We have castles, now comes c5, attacking white's strong center, d captures on c5, knight captures on c5, and only now bishop captures on c4. And here Topalov plays b6. It's a new move in this position, which is very odd for the Queen's Gambit decline, having already a new position at move 10. As you all know, the Queen's Gambit decline is one of the oldest openings in chess. We've been covering a lot of it during the Capablanca saga, but you know, more often than not, black will have problems in the Queen's Gambit decline how to develop the light square bishop, and here Topalov already solved that. So what's the problem with this line of play with black? Well, let's see how the game continues. We have queen to c2. White does have some lead in development, but that's perfectly normal. Bishop to b7. Topalov places his light square bishop on this beautiful diagonal. We have rook f to d1 now, as the queen vacated the d1 square. Now the rook occupies it. It comes with an attack against the black queen. We have queen to c8, and now comes knight to b5. This is what Grischuk had in mind, and this seems to be, well, the downside of this line for black. The early development of the bishop, the light square bishop, because now knight to d6 is coming, where you will either win the light square bishop or black will have to give up the dark square bishop if he wishes not to leave the knight on this very nice d6 square. So here we have a6 attacking the knight. Knight comes to d6, and here Topalov just grabs it. We have bishop captures, and now rook to d8 and rook a to c1, just with a nice rook queen battery along the c file. We have knight c to e4 by black. Just a nice knight on e4, and now comes bishop back to b4, offering a trade of rooks along the d file. Topalov trades. We have rook captures, queen captures on d1. Now the rook is eyeing that queen on c8, so Topalov moves it, not to d8, he moves it all the way to e8, and here we have bishop back to e2. We have rook to d8 now, attacking Grishuk's queen, queen to b3, and now bishop to d5, attacking the queen. We have queen to a3, attacking the a6 pawn, and here just a5, and the bishop goes all the way to e1. And here you have the bishop on e2 and the bishop on e1. Grischuk is forced to tuck away his bishop pair for the moment to use them later with a much deadlier force. We have h6 by Topalov, a nice useful move, taking away the g5 square from white's knight, also making some breathing room for the king, and knight to e5 now by Grischuk. We have rook to c8, b3 now. The queen now guards the rook on c1, and also the b3 blocks the light square bishop, so the a2 pawn will no longer remain a target, so a lot of purpose to the b3 move. We have rook captures on c1, queen captures on c1, and now queen to b8, threatening to capture the knight on e5, also maybe preparing to push on the queen side. And here you have a position where well, the material is completely equal, but white still has the bishop pair. If white is able to utilize the bishop pair, then everything, well, it should be a little bit better for white. As the game is played on both sides of the board, the position is pretty open, so the bishop should have an advantage. Here you could play an f4, seems like a very nice sharp move, but it does weaken your e3 pawn. And, well, yeah, all in all, Grischuk decided not to do it. He decided to take care of the knight differently. Queen to b2 is played, now defending the knight. We have knight to c5 now by black, and here f3. Just, you know, with further control of the e4 square. E4 is probably going to be played, and also making room for this bishop to come to g3 once the knight on e5 is attacked. We have knight f to d7. Now Topalov wants to trade knights, and now bishop to g3, just putting that bishop on this very nice diagonal, also protecting the knight. Queen to c8 now, getting the queen out of this nasty pin, and now comes knight to c4. Here Grischuk gets the knight out of the way. He doesn't want to trade. He's putting a lot of pressure on the queen, so you can't push b5, you will lose the a5 pawn. And here it's just an unpleasant position for black. So here Topalov decides to give up even the light square bishop. With bishop captures on c4, bishop captures on c4, and now queen to c6. So now it's two bishops against two knights, where again the play is on both sides of the board, and it's a pretty open position. So Grischuk does have the advantage with the bishop pair here. We have queen to e2. Just a nice centralizing square for the queen. We have f6 by black, and then now comes bishop to b5, pressuring the queen and the knight after the queen moves. Queen to d5, and then now bishop back to c4. And Topalov repeats, queen to c6. It's very hard for Topalov to look for advantage in this position, so of course he does not mind repeating moves, especially with the black pieces. And then now Grischuk retreats with the queen. Queen back to b2, again with a nice idea of centralizing the queen with queen to d4. Also, he might have ideas of a3, b4 in the future. We'll see how it goes. We have king to f7. Topalov decides now it's time for the king to also enter the game. H3, and now comes knight to b7. Just remaneuvering. Queen to d4, centralizing the queen for white, and now king to e7. And you know, there's the thing that you can have an active king, but you can also have a two active king, and the two active king is not something you want to have. So here Grischuk immediately tries to take advantage of this. He goes queen to g4 with ideas of infiltrating the king side. So king has to go back. We have king to f7. And now just king to h2, improving the position of his own king. And here you might want to go something like knight e5 with an attack on the queen and the bishop to at least grab one of the bishops. But here it doesn't work. The tactics work in white's favor. Just captures, and queen f5 check. The pawn, of course, is pinned. You cannot capture after the king moves. Now you go here. Threaten the g7 pawn, and if you defend it, then you get bishop captures, and white should be able to win this position. So after king to h2, we have knight d to c5 by black, and now comes a3. Just preparing b4. We have g6 by black, and now comes b4. A captures on b4, a captures on b4, and here you can see that black is in a lot of trouble, because what do you do with the knight? The problem is if you move the knight, let's say you go knight to d7, feel free to pause the video and try to find how white wins here, and what's the problem with moving the knight. I'll give you a couple of seconds to decide whether you want to do it or not. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. You are an excellent winner of games. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, b5 is the move. And now you can see that the queen has no squares left from where she can defend the e6 pawn. The bishop is controlling all of the dark squares here, so that's not an option. The bishop controls d5. The queen would have to move, and once you move the queen, you just get queen captures on e6 check, king g7, queen f7, king g7, queen f7 check, king to h8, and now just bishop to d5, where you are threatening too much. Black has no moves, the queen cannot move, has to keep an eye on this knight, has to keep an eye on this knight. If you move the queen anywhere out of the back rank, you will get queen g8 checkmate. If you try something like any move, let's say g5, then you get bishop e4, you still can't defend checkmate, you have to go something like this, and then just queen captures knight. Black will fall apart here. So you cannot move the knight. What do you do here? First, you force white to move the queen with h5. Now, of course, the queen has to move. We have queen to f4, and only now knight to d7. So now there are no threats of capturing on e6. Bishop to a6 by Grischuk. And again, it's a very interesting move, because if you play a slow move with black, let's say king to g7, you get queen to c7, and queen to c7 is winning for white, because well, you're either gonna lose a piece here, or if you capture, white will recapture, and then the knight has no squares because the bishop is covering both d8 and d6. and the pawn is covering a5 and c5, so the knight would be trapped here. This is the idea Grischuk has with bishop to a6. Now comes knight to d8, getting the knight. I mean, there's that threat, and also the threat of queen infiltrating via queen to h6, but you can't stop both of them. So Topalov prevents any loss of material with knight to d8, and now comes queen to h6, and now knight to f8, preventing queen to h7 check. But bishop back to d3, and again there are a lot of threats here. For example, you could capture on g6, and after knight captures, just queen h7 check, pick up the knight on g6 and win a pawn. But also it's very unpleasant. For example, if you play something like queen to c3, it's even worse. Let's say bishop to d6. Now you don't really have a good defense against queen captures on f8, which would be checkmate, and well, there's just nothing you can do here. So after bishop to d3, we have f5, not allowing this to ever be a threat. Now comes e4. Grischuk now wants to bust open the king side completely. Queen to d7, going after the bishop, and now queen back to e3. The queen did all the queen needed to do on the king side, so now back to the centralizing squares. We have queen to c6, and now queen to d4. Topalov still wants to trade queen d7. Now comes queen to c3 and g5. Topalov hopes of closing up the position with f4, but of course Grischuk isn't interested. E captures, and now bishop to c4 check. And here, again, a very difficult position for Topalov. If you go king g6, queen h8, and it's very unpleasant. For example, if you go queen g7, just captures, and bishop c7 will win you the b6 pawn. You have to move the knight. Now comes captures, and after the bishop moves, this pawn will just march forward and should win the game. So after bishop c4 check, we have knight d to e6 blocking, and now queen to h8 all the same. King to g6 by Topalov, and now bishop to e5 with ideas of not that, but with ideas of coming to f6 with check. So queen to e7 defending, and now queen to g8 check. Knight to g7 blocking, and now queen back to d5. So it's a tough position for Topalov. Not a lot of active moves. Queen to d7. Topalov still in hopes of trading queens, and now bishop to d6 blocking, and also preparing to capture the knight on f8. So we have knight f back to e6. And now just queen to e5, getting out of the way and waiting for black to make a move. We have h4 by Topalov, as it is the best move. There are no other moves. And now comes bishop to b5, leaving the black queen with even less squares to choose from. Queen to c8, still just trying to keep everything together. And now queen back to d5. And here Topalov goes queen to c3. A nice active move with the queen, with some ideas of going queen e1, queen g3 check, and maybe retreating to queen e1 and hoping for a perpetual check here, which could ensure him a draw. But Grischuk isn't interested. Bishop to e8 check. Now, of course, you cannot capture. If you capture, you will lose both of them. After queen captures with check, queen f6. Now, you don't capture the knight, but of course, I mean, you do capture the knight because it comes with check. And now, of course, after king moves, you will just be up a whole piece. So, after bishop e8 check, we have king to h7, and now comes bishop to d7. Again, with a double attack against the knight here, and queen to e1. Okay, for the moment the bishop is guarding the g3 square, so there aren't any problems here, and also the queen is now guarding the knight here, so you cannot capture. But again, there is one move that allows white to push for the win, and again, feel free to pause the video and try to find this move. I'm just gonna have a nice sip of water. For those of you who found it, congratulations, you are an excellent blocker of queens. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, bishop e5. Now bishop captures knight is a very serious threat, so it's not all that clear how you defend this. But Topalov finds a way. He plays f4. And of course, it's an interesting idea. Now, if knight is captured, the bishop no longer controls the g3 square. Black can draw this with a perpetual. King g1, queen e1 check, king h1, queen g3 check, back and forth, and it will be a draw by threefold repetition. So not something Grischuk wants to allow, as he is still hoping to win this game. Queen to d3 check. And now it doesn't matter where the king goes, white's next move is pretty much the same. King to h6, this is the best reply for black. And now just bishop back to c3, allowing queen to g3 check, but it doesn't do anything because the queen will have no squares to retreat to. The bishop is now controlling e1. So queen to e3, again Topalov wants to trade queens, but queen to c4. Continuing with the pressure, king to g6, and now bishop to c6, with ideas of going it over to e4. King to f7 by black, and now comes bishop to d5, again putting immense pressure on this pinned knight. And here we have knight to e8. Here Grischuk goes bishop to d4. He attacks the queen, and it's a very interesting idea. Of course, if the queen moves, then you get bishop captures. You just grab the pass pawn, move the bishop, and start pushing your pass pawn. There's not a lot white can do here. Even if you go for queen g3 check, king h1, queen e1 check, now the bishop retreats, and there are no further checks. Now you just push your pass pawn to victory. So here, after bishop to d4, Topalov tried b5. Now, if you capture my queen, I'll just capture your queen. But Grischuk said no thank you. He played queen to c6, and it was in this position on move 69 that Veselin Topalov, former world champion, resigned the game. Why did he resign? Well, there's really not much you can do here. You could play something like queen captures on d4, although it doesn't help you all that much, because after queen captures on e6, you will go king to g7, and now, of course, you don't capture the knight, because then you allow queen captures bishop. First, you go queen to f7 check. And now, if king to h8, then queen to g8 is checkmate. You have to go to h6, and now, of course, you all see the move, bishop to e4, and now there's no more stopping checkmate. Either queen to h7 or queen to g6 will be checkmate. The only move that prevents both of them is queen to g7, and now after queen comes to g7, you just capture the knight and you are up a piece and in a completely winning endgame. So yeah, Topalov did not wait for this. After queen to c6, he resigned, and a wonderful victory for Alexander Grischuk and his Grishop pair, so to say. And if some of you have missed my yesterday's video, so we did show two nice games. Here are the standings after round 5. Carlsen still in first place with 3.5, then Anand and Karyakin with 3, then with 2.5, Dingliren, David Novara, Alexander Grischuk after this a very nice victory, and Timur Rajabov, Shahrir Mamedyarov, and Veselin Topalov now with 2 points, and Anish Giri in last place without a single victory and already with 2 losses, which is, like I already mentioned, something that happens very, very, I don't know, don't even remember when was the last time Giri had such a tournament, and he was just about to re-enter the 2800 club. But that's chess, things happen. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Really an impressive game, showing how to really use the bishop pair against anything else when there's an open board and when the play is on both sides of the board. So a very nice tutorial by Alexander Grischuk. I would like to thank William Miller, Yoni Schlesinger, Jose Sanchez, Stefan Müller, and Jeff Graves for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check all my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content. The usual, and of course checking up on your suggestions. Thank you all. I will see you soon. Have an excellent rest of your day.